Goonhammer has partnered with Legalized Mischief to present you with Colin Ward's long-form painting videos. Like and subscribe, and follow Legalized Mischief and Goonhammer for more hobby tutorials.
Hey everyone, it's Colin with Legalized Mischief Productions. Thank you for joining me and welcome. And today we're going to be doing another 8mm epic scale Horus Heresy painting tutorial. And today we're going to be tackling the iconic 20th Legion under twin Primarchs Alfarius and Omegon, the Alpha Legion. Iconic. Not only are they threaded throughout the Horus Heresy from, Legion with Book 5 all the way through Master of Mankind, Praetorian Adorn, into the Siege of Terra. They're one of the most popular Horus Heresy armies, color scheme-wise. They have some great sculpts from Forge World, but the color scheme is really, really unique. It's super flexible, and really you can do a lot of different things with this color scheme. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and capture that semi-metallic, shining, bluish, greenish, turquoise-ish, purplish-ish scheme. And the thing that I like about it too, you can go detailing with either black or white alongside it. I'm going to do white because I think it looks the best. And with this kind of shimmer, green, turquoise-ish scheme, it really does most of the heavy lifting for you. After that, it's really just a little bit of detailing and a quick wash and calling it a day. There's not a lot of work to be done, and it looks fantastic. I love this scheme. So I'm excited to show it to you. We're going to do a metallic base coat. First, we're going to do the white. We're going to tape it off. Then we're going to do a metallic base coat. I have burnt iron for metal color, a little bit of silver. And then when I've done this scheme in the past, I've used violet ink for the deep, deep shadows, purple ink. And then I used some Dollar Rowney blue and then some turquoise ink from P3. I'm actually going to switch those two out for a little Achillean green contrast and Aethermatic blue contrast through the airbrush. I think that's going to work really, really, really well over the metallic base coat. And then do a little satin varnish over the top. And I think it's just going to be chef's kiss. I think it's going to work out really, really well. So first things first, you need to tackle the white so that we can tape it off and then do the rest of the scheme. At this scale, we're going to keep it super simple. We're not going to do a 3-stage white. We're just going to do a 2-stage white, which even, with the oil wash, you could probably get away with doing just white for this small of an area. But the wolf gray, sorry, that was Vallejo Game Color Wolf Gray. The wolf gray covers a lot better than just white over this black. So there are a lot of different kind of areas to do striping on a Spartan. This is one that I think is really effective. And then I'm not going to do the door stripes. I'm just going to do the one stripe on the front. We're going to leave the doors alone. But especially like for Alpha Legion, I just think it's a nice little, just a nice little stripe on the front there. Nothing too extraordinary. They're such a unique and interesting color scheme. You can change schemes within the army even. My friend Mark really likes the Alpha Legion scheme, and he was thinking of using it as a basis for like a 40k Primaris army. And we were talking about like you could even just reverse the scheme entirely for forward operating strings. You could have them be black with like matte black with a little bit of the green maybe on the shoulder pad, or not, or just have the heraldry and like the same lens color. Sorry, that's AK white. And tie them in that way and just have like these matte black special ops. Like he was thinking for like infiltrators and incursors and things like that, which would be super cool thematically, I think, for an army. Just like total spec ops, like magenta lenses, those would be rad. But I digress. So give me a second. I'm going to hit that with a hairdryer and then we'll get the tape. Okay, so here I have my cutting board, and this is why I kind of leave the scraps behind. So I use 6mm Tamiya tape. This is for like the door stripes on other schemes, which I've obviously already cut out a few of those. Now, these strips that are left behind from me making those cuts, those look like they're going to be about the right width, especially this one right here, for my stripe. Even though I think like this part will be long enough. So I want to make sure I square off the end. This is probably like 3mm wide. Oh yeah, that'll be long enough. Kind of line it up on the center there. And then I'm going to use, this is just a silicone sculpting tool. Ooh, that's going to be a little long. I need it to be about like right there. Pull that out. There we go. Line it up with the guns and the lip on the front of the... And I'm going to use a silicone sculpting tool to just kind of press that down. It's just less severe than using a knife blade. Want to make sure to get in that crease right there. So, so I don't get a lot of bleed when I do the rest of the scheme. A fingernail works well for that. And I can tuck that right under the guns, smooth it out. Lined up. Now we're ready to go. Easy peasy. That's why I just gotta leave the straps there. After a long period of time, they won't really be super useful, but I mean, those are from yesterday. So, okay, now is where the fun begins. This is going to be a lot of back and forth, and I'm going to try and move pretty quick because I don't want this necessarily to take forever. But I think it's important. So this is going to be a fun one. I'm excited about this. I love painting this scheme. I think it looks super cool. Loyalists don't get all the fun stuff like this. So this is the Vallejo metal color burnt iron, and then we're just going to do an overall base coat with this to get that metallic base, right? Oh, I have to go all the way under the tank. I just want to make sure I get a nice and solid base coat so nothing comes back to bite my ass in the end. Okay. Great. now I'm going to come in with Vallejo Game Air Silver. This is a very white silver. Which, of course, is what I want. Because this is going to be the sharp highlight. When you're doing a scheme like this, you need a lot of contrast between the shadows and the highlights. Otherwise, none of it's going to show up once you start to do the glazing. So like you can see there, the dark metallic up top, the really, really light metallic on the bottom. Do that zenithal right from over the top like that, and now you have that shading that we've seen so many times in this tutorial series, but we're going to keep doing it because I realize not everybody watches every tutorial that I make. You're going to come here just for the Legion that you want to watch, probably. So, dark to light, spray right over the top to get that nice zenithal on top. And we have one shiny Spartan. And now, the real fun begins. We're going to need that silver again, so don't put that too far away, because that is going to come into play, which you'll see here. So the idea is we're going to lay the purple in the darkest shadows. The violet ink is going to be in the darkest shadows. Then we're going to do the blue, kind of like an overall kind of main tone to the whole endeavor is going to be that Achelian green, which is, you know, a dark kind of greenish blue. And then we're going to do the silver highlight again. Then the achromatic blue contrast is going to come in at the end to really give that color shift all the way from the violet ink up to, you know, this lighter turquoise. And I think it's going to be really profound. So, oops. Come on. No. All right, so this is undiluted. This is just violet ink. And I'm using ink because it's more transparent. But if you build it up, it can get more opaque. But I like having that control, and it's a good color. So, you know, there's always that too. But you want to go easy because it will pool before it covers, which is a good rule of thumb. I'm going to come in from the bottom and get the darkest shadows. Good rule of thumb when working with, you know, inks or thin contrast, it will pool before it covers. So you really want to start off gently. Sorry, that whistling is terrible, but and then kind of work your way out. And we want to leave some of that we want to leave that silver showing for when we come in with the blue. We don't want to obliterate that silver. We want to leave some of that there. For we do want to get in those deep shadows, especially on the top of the hole, right next to the tracks here. Tracks or whatever, I can, you know, I'll be brush painting over them. We said those are less of a concern. Oh God, eyes. Okay. Coming over here. Ooh, it's a nice Emperor's Children-ish purple. Duly noted. Duly noted. I still have that one to do. That is a nice purple though. Over gold, that could work. Purple does not show up that well on camera for whatever reason. I'm sure there are filming and like hue related reasons, but so I apologize in advance for that, but nothing, you know, I haven't been able to figure it out. So if anybody has any suggestions, on all ears. Like the Emperor's Children tutorial is going to be tough, but we persist. So now that we have the violet ink down in the shadows, then we're going to come back. I'm going to get my little salsa cup here and my Arcalian green and the contrast medium. I'm not going to need a ton of this. That's more than I need, I'm sure. I'm going to do 50-50 contrast medium. I'm sure there's, an easier way to do that, but this is really a perfect color for Alpha Legion. I mean, come on. That is a beautiful dark green, blue. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful color. There's clog in there. Okay, we'll come back to that. So it looks very green, and then as you build it up, but see how that's not how we're going to do it. But this is going to be more of an overall. Look at that. That is freaking cool. I love this hobbies. This is going to be like an overall glaze. Man, you could almost get away with just that. Whoop, it's too much spray up there at the top. Again, it's going to pool before it covers. Always keep that in mind. Patience. I get excited and I just like, oh, I should spray it. Have to be patient a little bit. Look at that. That is a cool. It's a little dark. As far as the scheme goes, as we do this next pass, it's a little dark. But man, that's a cool. It's the right blue. It's the right bluish kind of color for sure. For sure. All right, so we're gonna clear that out of the cup. Like the shadows are gonna be pretty dark on this, but that's okay. This is looking pretty sweet. So we'll clear that out. Bring back that Game Air silver. What? Spatter is going to be a big issue. Air, but that's okay. It's inevitable, and the contrast will smooth a lot of that out too. So I use my thumb to kind of do a little quick mask right there. Varying degrees of success. Come on the top here for that zenithal, just on the top, not zenithal, I'm sorry, panel modulation, just on the top. I'm not going to come down the front there. Start at the bottom. Straight over the top. I'm not crazy about how much that's speckled into the shadows, to be honest. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and do the next. Okay, I already tuned out this. 1 second. Let me get all this metallic out of the airbrush here. But you see what I'm saying? Like, it lightened the shadow a lot there. I'm not a hugely fan of that, so I'll show you what. Show you what I'm going to do about that. Thought maybe it was a little dark, so we can actually come back with that Achillean green rather than the violet ink. And then shooting up into the shadow to keep that panel modulation, I'm just going to glaze back those shadows like that and kind of maintain that modulation, but get a little bit of a blend. But I want to be careful. I don't want to obliterate. Those highlights are going to get obliterated really quick. So I want to make sure that doesn't happen. I just want to reestablish that panel modulation on the side, because I don't think the achromatic blue is going to be super opaque. I think it's going to be really transparent and kind of weak. Out of the three, the ink, the Achillean green, and the achromatic blue, I think achromatic blue is going to be the weakest. I'm actually not even going to use the thinner, the medium. I'm just going to go straight. Achromatic blue in the cup. Just consistency-wise, color-wise. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That's barely showing up. But that's okay. That's the color we want, I think. The turquoise ink is like more... We can always go back to the turquoise ink. It's still an option, of course. But... And this stuff will for sure clear before it even shows up, really. But a couple coats of this, and I think we're gonna be right where we want to be, I think. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah. So where we're at is, I think, especially up top here, I think those, I think the shadows are too deep. There's too much distance between. Now, the achromatic blue is just not showing up. Versus, like, let's say this turquoise ink from P3. This stuff is great. Pretty much the same color, right? But more green, maybe. So there is just too much distance between the shadows on this and the highlight. Like the shadows here, they've gone over so many times it looks almost black. And it's just kind of... I did not go far enough with... I did not go far enough with the highlights, or yeah, with that second highlight after doing the blue and the violet and everything. That's fine. That is not a huge deal. We're going to fix that right now. This is part of working out a scheme. I have not worked out this scheme, obviously, before I started this tutorial. So, but we're close. We're right there. So this is the model colored burnt iron. I'm going to come back with this just straight over the top and just kind of lighten everything up. Lighten everything up in the shadows. I'm going to leave, obviously that is going to be in the dark. The deep, deep shadow is still going to be that, oops, I cannot forget to do the back again. I'm always forgetting the back of the Spartan. That deep, deep shadow is still going to be, you know, that almost kind of black purple color, but we got to lighten up. We have to lighten up the rest of this. It's just not, it was just too dark, flat out. It just didn't look good. And looking good is why we're here. So we're going to come back in with that Kellyan green. And this is, you know, part of using new materials and using new colors. I also haven't done this in, I don't know, at least a year and a half. The Alpha Legions game, I mean. And if we build up the blue too much again, it's the same thing's going to happen. But it's not going to be as dark as when it was that purple. Plus, I want it, you know, I want it kind of dark. I don't want a bright, happy Alpha Legion. I want dark, mysterious Alpha Legion. That's a much better, this is a much better place to be than where we were just a minute ago. So now we actually have some differentiation. You can see there's not as much distance between the green and the kind of the dark bluish tint that we have going on there. Filtered it a little over the turquoise ink itself. So forget the so we still want to do the violet, but we want to do more. We do the violet, then the Kellyan green, do kind of an overall with the burnt iron, little highlighted silver, turquoise ink, kind of glazed back with blue, and then we're here, which is a really great place to be. This looks fantastic. So I'm happy with where we ended up. It took a little bit of a circuitous route to get there, but that's how this goes sometimes. Sometimes you have to work the progression more than once, and you just got to kind of feel your way through it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a airbrush needle to grab that piece of tape. Because the thing about these schemes is they are super fragile. Some bleed, but not too bad. Not too bad. Nothing that can't be touched up. And then for the final touch, we're going to come in with the AK satin varnish. And this is really the nice finishing touch there. Now we get that little shine. not too much. We get that shine. We've protected the ink. Now we can come back and do transfers and the like, then gloss varnish. Oil wash, all the rest. So I'm going to link the tracks and guns and everything. I'm going to link that tutorial below. I'm not going to film individual tutorials for those because they're the same on all of these tanks. This did turn out a little dark, but you know, feel free to play with it. I think it's good. I think it's a good scheme with the Achillean green and the turquoise ink. I think it's a good scheme. So anyway, I'm going to link it in the description below. When we come back, guns will be painted, tracks will be painted. That will help a lot. And then we'll start in on, I'll see if I can find some transfers or something. And then we can start in on detailing, do a little bit of weathering, and finish it off. We're going to be doing part 2 of the 8mm scale epic Horus Heresy tutorial series for the Alpha Legion, 20th Legion. We're going to be covering transfers and a little bit of chipping before we move on to weathering and the finishing touches in part 3 of the series. So with the transfers, unfortunately, I don't have an Alpha Legion Forge World transfer sheet. If you're going to do Horus Heresy at any scale, if you're going to do Space Marines really of any kind, if there is a relevant Forge World Horus Heresy transfer sheet for your Legion or for your chapter, get it. Because it's indispensable. They're the best. It's absolutely indispensable. It's phenomenal resource to have for your project. They work in this scale as well. So there'll be a lot that won't work at this scale, but there's plenty on the sheet that does work at this scale that buying one is still absolutely worth it. I would not do a Space Marine project without one. So be sure to pick one up if there's one available for your Legion. But if you don't have one, or if you're not going to pick one up, there are other options. So we have doors here where we can, obviously want to put something. And then we also have this stripe at the front if we can find something to go there. I like to put a little thing on the hatch at times, but I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if we're going to find anything really that works. So one of the first places to look is on Space Marine transfer sheets. And here's just an Ultramarines infantry transfer sheet for Primaris Marines. This is, this comes in every box of Primaris Marines. If you play Space Marines, you have a ton of these. I love these for chapter markings. And then there's a row down here at the bottom that's white, which is very helpful. Very underrated how helpful that is, especially on a kind of green or blue-green base. So we're going to be looking for white transfers for the doors and white transfers for the hatch. There's a little 20 for the 20th Legion, or the double X for the 20th Legion. I think it's the right size to fit on that hatch. So I'm going to cut that out. And then this is an Ultramarines vehicle transfer sheet for Primaris Marine vehicles. I have a bunch of these too. So same identification numbers here. It's got a skull. These numbers are a little big for epic scale, but there's one right in here, this medium-sized row, that I think is going to be perfect for the doors. And it goes all the way up to 20. So we have 20th Legion markings. but there's only one on each sheet. So I have to grab that sheet and then grab this other sheet here. 2020. And then that's all from those sheets. And then a great resource is the other game in this scale, or one of the other games in this scale, which is Adeptus Titanicus. And in Adeptus Titanicus, you get a bunch of transfer sheets, obviously, with each Titan. Most of them aren't much help. So like this one's not a big help. There's just a bunch of Titan stuff up top, which obviously doesn't apply. Some Griffins, which could be cool for, something maybe at some point. But really nothing until we get to, there's a War Master transfer sheet and then the Warbringer Nemesis transfer sheet. Now, these Eye of Horus are going to come into play for the Sons of Horus tutorial because I don't have their transfer sheet either. But looking at the War Master Titan sheet, and this is probably on the like an AdMech transfer sheet has these same symbols, I think. But there's a nice little A right there. A nice little stylized A in black. I think that's going to look great on that stripe there. Alternatively, we could also do an Eye of Horus to kind of show their allegiance to Horus during the Horus Heresy, but I think we'll just take that A and put that on the front for Alpha Legion. Nice thing about Alpha Legion, you can do basically whatever you want. So, before I get those soaking, I'm going to protect those. Before I get those soaking, I'm going to take my Liquitex gloss varnish, and I'm just going to varnish, because the whole thing's been satin varnished, which, actually, now that I think about it, should probably be fine. But I know a way that works, and let's not change it at the last minute. So, I'm just going to gloss varnish, get a nice base of gloss varnish in the area that I want to put transfers. So there, on the hatch, on that front, kind of prow area. And then on this door over here, transfers always come before chipping. That way, if we want to chip the transfer, we hit the transfer with a little chipping, it looks natural versus, putting a transfer over a chipped area and not having the transfer itself be chipped, which looks strange. So I'm going to let that cure for, 5 or 10 minutes. I'm just going to let that sit. And then when we come back, we're going to apply these transfers. So just give me a minute and I'll be right back. Okay, so now that that's cured, I just get my paper towel wet, and then drop these transfers on here. I actually found a better transfer for the hatch on a long out of print, like Mars Skitarii transfer sheet from when they released the army, I think in 7th edition. They were big, like Forge World size transfer sheets that they did for Ryza and Mars and I think Metallica. Super clutch. But there was a little Omega symbol on that sheet, so I'm going to put that on the hatch. I like doing the damp paper towel trick because I don't have to fish transfers out anywhere. The backing paper gets activated and releases the transfer, and then I'm able to, and then it just sits there. I'm able to use the transfer whenever I want. It doesn't go anywhere. I don't have to search for it. It's great. I love it. I used a brush to apply transfers. I'm going to use a size 2 Redgrass Games brush because it has no use in actual painting anymore, because this is I used it once to paint and this is what it looks like now. It looks like, a witch's broom. When you get it wet, though, it does like go back to a point, but it's not, and it's super loose. It's like you put this thing sideways, so it's not great for miniature painting, but it is pretty good with the transfers. So like this one's already activated. That one's going to take a second, and these two already have activated. So we'll get started. Micro set and micro soul, absolutely indispensable when it comes to doing transfers. I'm going to get the micro set so that the transfer sticks to where I'm putting it. Then I'm going to grab one of these XX here for 20th Legion. Come down on the door and just drop it like right in the middle of the door there. Oh shit. Oops. Right wedge. Maybe over a little bit. I think that's fine. XX, 20th Legion. Come over here. Do it on the other side. The vents are like so oversized because of this print that like it's obscuring part of the door where I actually want to put this transfer. So forgive me. It's a little low on the door. But I mean, that's kind of nitpicky. It's a pretty good print. But if they ever do release this game, I'm very much looking forward to the plastic versions of these. Too far that way. Come on. There we go. XX. 20th Legion. A little bit of micro set here and here. Grab the Omega. There we go. That's cool. I like that. And then the Alpha. Oh, come on. You can scoot around a little bit. Come on. Feel that still off by just a touch. Just a touch. You can really only move this thing a couple times until it just stops. So that's good enough, I think. Yeah, it's still off, but I don't think I'm going to get another bite at that apple. Personally, I don't want to go get another chance. So, good enough. Soak that up. Soak up the excess. I think that's fine. That's pretty centered. Alpha, Omega, Double X, the 20th Legion. Looks good to me. I mean, I'm happy with it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Micro Soul and go over it. Less important on flat surfaces, but it's still worth it. That's going to soften the transfer and just kind of help it kind of lay down, kind of melt into the surface. So we're going to let that sit for a second. It evaporates really quick, so it's only going to take a second. And then just with the damp part of the paper towel from the transfers, just roll very gently to just have it totally lay flat, pick up all the excess. Microsole, and we're good. Transfers, essentially finished. Just need to do one more thing, and then put those off to the side. Now I just need to get the gloss varnish again. And I'm going to go back over the transfers with the gloss. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide surface for... It's going to provide an acrylic surface for future varnish to react with, rather than having paint or varnish interact with the transfer material. By putting gloss varnish over the top, it actually does two things. It kind of fills in a little on the edges and on the edges of the transfer, and then it also it also gives that acrylic layer for paint and varnish to interact with, rather than the transfer material, which is important. So typically I'd matte varnish over that before I go and do chipping, but I think this time I'm not really going to chip around where that material is. So I just had some
Where's my story? What?
Give me 1 second. I'm going to grab some foam. Okay, so I got some foam, and so one of the things that's tricky about doing chipping on a scheme like this, where it's this kind of metallic ink glaze scheme, is you can't really... The actual, like, the top chipping color, just choosing chipping colors is hard. So I'm going to go with my go-to, whoa. That's always sketchy. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's so much. And so that's just a little tinny tin and some black. And mix those together. The tinny tin gives it a little metallic hue, and then the black obviously just makes it dark to chip. And because this is such a small application, I'm going to use some tweezers and then just pluck foam from like a battle foam case or, you know, whatever. Just a little piece is all we need. Just tear off a corner, use the torn portion. Make sure most of the paint is off. And then I'm just going to go along. We're going to do very light weathering on this. Very light expected areas. So right on the front, right along that bottom kind of rail there. It doesn't really matter, because so right along the bottom, it doesn't really matter that you cannot see this. Excuse me. Doesn't matter that you can't really see this chipping that well. You don't need to put more just because you can't see this part well. This is just laying the foundation for the second part. So I broke my own rule. I didn't make sure that enough of the paint was off of it, and so I gave some larger chips back there. This is just laying the foundation for the second, oh gosh, that was way too much. What's going on there? For the second chip. And that's where things get a lot more interesting, is with the second round of chipping. Toss that to the side. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to grab some of this turquoise ink from when we did the armor paneling. And then a really light silver, like a white silver. Doesn't matter really, specific paint. Did a similar thing for the Thousand Suns version of this. A little bit of turquoise. Get that silver paint and that turquoise ink and create sort of a tinted metallic. Very thin tinted kind of green metallic. And then that's what we're going to use to do our chipping, highlighting. So we're not going to lose that metallic sheen, because we can't just go in there with like we can't go in there with just a matte color, like just a regular paint color. So this is where this gets a little more interesting. And this is very thin, so you want to be extremely careful with it. If you go overboard with this, it could have, negative effects on the overall paint job. But now you can see there's a little bit of chipping there. That looks a bit like chipped armor. I'm pretty happy with that. Around the ramp. And then I'm going to do a little bit around the cupola here and around the hatch. Typically where I do some chipping. Almost like a faux edge highlight a little bit up here. But that's really it. Again, we do not want to overextend. We don't want to get too ambitious with this, because it's a weird little thing that kind of works. Okay, but we don't want to like press our luck with it. And then coming along the front here. As well. And that's it. So that's just a little bit of chipping. And it looks chipped, and then we're going to put it down, because I really don't want to tempt fate with that one. Because if it goes sideways, you're just going to have a kind of meh look to your paint job. But we're not going to, you could do, I guess, some scratching with that, but we're not going to get that deep into the weathering. Alpha Legion looks good weathered, but with some restraint. So that's how we do the transfers and the chipping. Those transfers are going to look really, really nice with the finished product. So next time when we come back for part 3, we're going to cover the oil wash, and then a little bit of scorching, and then the weathering of the tracks for the pigments to really finish it off. So I'm going to be doing part 3 of the 8mm scale epic Horus Heresy tutorial series for the 20th Legion, Alpha Legion. Today we're going to be doing the oil wash and also some scorching, and then the pigment work and like atmospheric weathering, which is really important on tanks. First things first, though, grabbing the Liquitex gloss, and we're going to give this thing an overall coat of gloss. That's why I didn't go back and do the matte over the transfers, because the transfers weren't really going to get weathered, and so I just skipped it. And then we're going to get chipped. So I skipped that. And then I knew I was just going to come do this anyway. I'm not avoiding the tracks, but I'm not like not avoiding the tracks. I actually don't think I really need to worry about the traps. Specifically, but and then can't forget back here, which I always forget. But just a nice layer of glossed varnish. And while that is setting up, I don't wait too long, I'm impatient. But you can see it's an overall gloss varnish. We do this so that it functions more as a pin wash, and so that the paint or the oil wash doesn't affects the underlying paint. This one's a little tricky because of the finish, but the gloss varnish is the way to go. And then now I need to get to Payne's Gray. That's not going to be dark enough. That's not it. All right, now I have these individual kind of most commonly used mixes, colors. This one is black. This one was a little weak, so I'm actually going to add a little bit more this. Come out wherever you are. I'm actually going to add a little bit more oil to this one because it was a little weak the last time I used it. Black is very forceful. I typically cut it with other colors, but this one is a pure black wash. I think this is going to be best for the Alpha Legion scheme because it's really going to give a strong pin wash without a bunch of like grime, I think. And it's just going to be a very clean, kind of minimalist pin wash. And this is real dark. Like the top of this is real dark. So the kind of just dark brown isn't, I don't think, really going to cut it. So we're going to use the pure black. I'm going to let this cure up for another few minutes. It's still a little sticky. I'm also going to link below to the tutorial to make an oil wash. It's just Artist White Spirit and oil paint. You saw me add some more oil paint to that. But I'll link to a full tutorial on how to make the oil wash below so that you can see how that's done. I highly recommend it. They are life-changing. So I'm going to let this set up for another, 10 minutes maybe. And then when we come back, we'll hit the oil wash. Okay, now that is set, I'm going to get my black oil wash here. This is going to look like kind of an overall wash, but you'll see when it comes time to remove the oils. It's really just, but you can already see like how that's the difference between this side and then now this side. Is just a lot better defined. And it makes a huge difference on the top area here, specifically with this print. There's a lot going on up here that kind of gets a little muddled. But when you hit it with that oil, it really shines. So we don't need it all up in there. That's fine. And then we're going to use just Q-tip to remove it, just leaving the wash in the recesses. It takes just a few minutes, and it's really kind of the best. That's why we use oil washes, because it's fast, it's efficient, it looks really good, gets the job done in a very short amount of time. It leaves a nice little bit of grit behind if you want it to. This won't leave much by the way of grit, but that's on purpose, like I talked about. So ideally I'd be batch painting these, and by the time I got to the last one, the first The oil on the first one will be dry. I'm going to let this sit for, I don't know, another minute, and then I'm going to get the hair dryer out to dry it out. The white spirit evaporates and leaves the oil left behind. And so the heat will speed that up. So be right back. Okay, now that that's dry, I'm going to get my white spirit. I'm just going to put a little bit in the cap because we're not using a whole lot of it. And then my very technical oil paint removal device, the Q-tip. And gently, you do not have to press very hard. I do not want to rub this, down to the paint or anything. But you can see how much of that surface paint is coming back. That's the beauty of oils. Is really just takes the paint right off the surfaces that you're hitting with the Q-tip and leaves everything else in the recesses. And then we have a nice panel-lined, defined space. Take. Model. And it works great. It just works great. It's a great technique. It's one that I've used for years, and I love the way it looks, and I love how efficient it is. So it's a twofer, really. If you could pick up one new skill even beyond, I think, like airbrushing, I would say oil washing, because airbrushing is expensive. Like oil washing, you can get started for like $30 worth of product, and that tube of black that I used I've had that tube since I started oil washing like 6 years ago. You do not use a lot. One tube of a specific paint will last you. I have yet to replace a tube of oil paint, and I've painted thousands of models with them. So extremely cost efficient as well. But there we have the nice little, really nice little pin wash there. Fantastic. Super happy with that. Gonna let that dry again because that white spirit's gonna be lingering a bit. We're gonna let that dry, and then when we come back, we're gonna do some scorching. So we'll be right back. Okay, now that is dry, I'm actually gonna wait on the matte varnish because I don't think I need to do it now. I'm just gonna do it once, and then we'll be set. Dollar Rowney, FW. I have burnt umber. I also have, not Payne's Gray. Black. This is what I use for scorching. You can use other like sepia or umber inks or black inks. I use inks, not paint, because of the transparency. They're very saturated and they're very transparent. So you still get that little bit of metallic shine through the ink, which I think is important for scorching because it gives it a more realistic look. I don't want to put tape all over this thing, so I'm going to do what I call quick masking, and that's where I just get a piece of paper. Typically, I would use a business card. I don't have any right now, but I just slide this behind the guns and then make sure that I'm angling away from the tank, so any overspray is going onto the paper. And then when it comes time to do this side, I'm spraying away, and so it doesn't affect the tank. So spraying away, coming back over here, slip the paper behind, and then spray towards the front of the tank. Same thing on the guns on the front. It's just so much faster than blowing away on the tape. especially at this scale, you know, you're fine. Then I'm also going to get the vents on the back. And I'm doing the umber first because I want that brown tinge to extend further than the black. I want the black to be kind of the tips of the guns, the center of the vents, and then I want this umber to be kind of the lowest down. There we go. That'll work. It's way more visible at larger scales, like the Estrella Super Heavy, or my Sisters of Battle Castigator tank is a really good example of that. Or even like Titans, Adeptus Titanicus Titans that I've painted is a really good example of scorching on weapons. On a 8mm scale las cannon, it's a little harder to tell, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it if you can. It's a nice practice. And is this something I really want to do, or am I crazy, or maybe a little bit of both? So just getting the black kind of towards the end, and you're going to see like that umber extending beyond the black. That's what we want. That looks like just kind of different levels of build-up. So just a little touch of realism to the grim darkness of the far future. Doing our part. And front guns. Whoops. Come on. Come on. All right. Front guns spraying away. Good enough. Vents. Kind of sticking in the middle, but it's all going to look sooty at the end. And then I can actually just stick my finger here and just get the tops of those exhausts. And that's it. You know, not overly complex, but very effective. You know, it just gives like a little layer of realism. And I think it's important for that kind of, that Horus heresy aesthetic, quote unquote, of a little bit more with the military modeling techniques, a little bit more with wear, tear, grunge as they say. So now I am going to get a little bit of matte varnish. And I'm just going to varnish the whole thing. To kind of seal everything up and just get everything kind of set to 0. And then we'll come in with a little bit of weather.
Perfect.
We're close. I mean, the only frustrating part that I'm having painting all these wonderful Spartans is one, I wanna play a game with 8mm Spartans. A game doesn't exist. And 2, I don't get to batch paint them. I have to paint them one at a time, which just causes like a little bit of hiccup. It's like a hiccup in the workflow when I'm like, okay, well, now I have to stop. Oh, no, I have to stop. When typically I try to make sure that like I'm painting enough items at once that I don't have to stop. But that's neither here nor there. So clear that out. And as you can see, that really took a lot of the sheen off of the metal. Like it's still off of the kind of metallic look to the armor. It still looks fine. But it's not great. It's not as Alpha Legion as it was before, but thankfully, AK Interactive makes satin varnish. Not too shiny, not too matte. It is somewhere in between. It is satin varnish. And The reason I matte varnished first and then I'm doing satin is if you do satin varnish over gloss, you might as well have just done like 2 layers of gloss varnish. If you do matte varnish first and then satin varnish over the top of it, you get kind of a true satin look rather than the gloss. I'm intentionally trying to avoid the areas with the scorching because those would be matte. That buildup would have kind of a matte finish. That buildup would not be shiny. So, it's fine. It's fine. Not gonna worry about it. That was a lot of. There's a coloration element in the satin varnish from AK. It's not. It's gonna dry clear like on the other side. But you can see that nice little sheen that we got back on the top and on the side there. A nice pin wash. Everything is looking sweet. Everything's looking really, really good. And then, of course, this on the other side. I was hitting it with the air just to get it to chill out just a little bit. That's going to be shiny, but that's fine. I'm not worried about it. And now, the super fun part. 2 things, and then we are done. First things first. This is a neat trick and one that I use pretty often. And that is getting a, this is a splash mud, light brown splash mud. It looks, kind of the same color as my desert basing. I'm doing all of these tutorial tanks in like a Siege of Terra-ish, desert-ish, rubble kind of theme. So they're all just going to get this type of basing, but this is really important to tie your tanks in with your base models, infantry, whatever. Doing this kind of weathering and the pigment weathering on the tracks really helps to integrate it. This, I'm just going to go along the bottom here. This is going to give me a little bit of atmosphere, a little bit of dust. And I'm just going to go along the bottom very lightly. Little on the bottom there. Very lightly across the bottom there. And across the bottom there. So it just gives that little bit of like dry dust kicked up as it travels. I'm not doing it all the way around, just on the part just right next to the ground, and it gives a little, just that little bit of realistic looking dust. And now the pièce de résistance, the final bit. And one of my favorite parts, really. This is the part where we get the pigment onto the tracks. I'm just using bases as catch all for the pigments. Oh, come on. Here we have Burning Sands, which is a very just kind of desert-ish color. The dark yellow is going to be too dark. And then here, I just used this on another, there's clay brown. And the clay brown is a nice kind of pinkish brown color that goes really well for, like, you know, I don't know, if you had a palace up in the Himalayas, yeah, with pink stone could be helpful. So taking a little bit, and we don't need much of this, a little bit of clay brown into the cap there, and then a little bit of the burning sands, just with some isopropyl alcohol, and that's just going to create a little wash. The isopropyl is also going to act like a fixer, so we actually don't need to come back at the end with a pigment fixer either. So this is just the clay brown. We're just going to do a quick little pass with that. And if you can see it built up, it's going to show up, because you want this to be fairly light, but not super light. And we're going to come in to the burning sands, and then just kind of add that along the way. A little bit here, a little bit there. Spread that out a little bit more. And then one of my favorite things to do actually is just speed this process up. And I'll cut the mic and then show you that, because that's always fun to watch happen. You can already see it starting to oops, yeah, whatever. You can already see it starting to dry out a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Easy.
But let me cut the mic and then show you what happens. Pretty cool. So that's just making sure that isopropyl, that's just helping that isopropyl evaporate. And now we have some really nice kind of yellows and almost pink dirt and debris. Not debris, but dirt, dust. But it looks a little caked on there. You kind of lost the texture on the tracks. And so I get to do one of my favorite things to do, which is take Secret Weapon Metallic Iron Pigment, which I will literally never run out of. I don't think I could paint enough tanks to run out of this stuff. So I just tap my finger on the top of it, and then I come in here and gently rub with my finger, and you can see that metallic sheen. It just gives it a nice metallic finish when you rub it. It's, you know, graphite, essentially, is what a lot of the old guys use to do this. They'll shave off pencil graphite or something. But, you know, save some time and some effort. I think I paid $6 for that pot of pigment. I never have to shave a pencil to do this. So, but this is absolutely one of my favorite things to do. It's so fun. One of the reasons is it's just so damn easy and looks so damn good. Boom, look at that. You got my tracks back. Cool. Happy with that. All right. And we're done. That's it. Another one in the bag, as they say. Alpha Legion, Horus Heresy. Bluish, greenish, shimmery. Just looks cool. Ready to roll. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. I hope you enjoyed our time together. this would cover probably 95% of vehicles that you're going to paint. A lot of these techniques are applicable no matter what kind of shape something is. You have some other decisions to make, but you could do infantry armor the same way. So it's a really, really, I think it's a really solid scheme. I think it's a solid recipe, solid approach. So I hope you think so too. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with it. If you have any questions, please leave them below so that everybody can see the answer. And thank you as always for your support. Take care, be well, paint happy, and the Emperor protects.